So I want to sell my home, and I put it on the market for $300,000.
It's a lovely home you have, Mr. Brother. I'm the agent.
All right, let me start over. That might be good, but I'm starting over. All right, I want to sell my home. I put it on the market for $300,000. I get an offer today for $290,000. The question is, if I could wait a week and get an offer for the full $300,000, would I rather wait that week and get the full price or take the offer today for $290,000?
You want to take it now. I'll be the real estate agent. I'm telling you, you want to take it right now because a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and the market is really starting to soften up. And these things, you just can never tell. And if you have a good offer, I really think it's the right thing to take it. And I'm not speaking out of self-interest here because I'm just a real estate agent, and our interests are aligned because I'm getting a commission of your sale. So I want you to get as much as you can for this house. I really do.
When you think about the incentives that the current contract set up between the home seller and the agent representing them, they're not well aligned. But can you ever prove that?
Interestingly, if you look at the sales data on real estate agents' own homes, not their clients' homes, but when they sell their own homes, they get more money than if they sold the same home for a client. Now, why would that be? Well, what we find in the data is that agents hold out for a better price and leave their own homes on the market longer, an average of 10 days longer. But when it comes to your house, well, the agent has an incentive to sell right away.
Why? Because of that $10,000 into his or her pocket, only $150.
I only get $150 because if you take that $10,000 extra dollars, it goes to him. 6% goes to commission, but that gets whacked up. Half goes to the buyer's real estate agent, so I've got half of that 6%. But then I have to kick back half of that to my agency. So I only get 1.5%. So really, in order for me to help him get $10,000 extra dollars, I personally only get $150. But I have to work for an extra week. I have to buy all the marketing. I could be off with another client trying to get a whole commission on another house. So I have a strong incentive to say to him, this is a great offer. It's the best offer you're ever going to get. I really think you should take it.
So no matter what the real estate agent says, I would rather wait a week and pick up the extra $10,000. The agent wouldn't.
It's not that real estate agents are bad. It's just that they're human beings, and human beings respond to incentives.
If there's only one element that I say is there in almost everything we do, it's the idea that incentives matter, and if you can figure out what people's incentives are, you have a good chance of guessing how they're going to behave.
New parents look at successful families and successful parents, and they just want to copy them, and so they try to do the things that they think that they did to get their family so smart and good and whatever, which is really just can be a really bad mistake of correlation causality. So like, you're gonna take your kid to, you know, every Mommy and Me music class, and you're gonna take them to the museum and start looking at all the Greek and Roman sculptures, and you probably already were playing Mozart in the womb and things just to get the brain really stimulated. And it turns out that as best as we can tell from looking at data of actual parents and children along these dimensions, that none of that stuff really matters. It just doesn't make your child better, smarter. It might make you happier, might even make them happier, it might also make them miserable. But it turns out that those are not causal elements.
I always said, you can teach a kid just as much at the grocery store as you can at a museum, maybe more. My entire academic life has been devoted to figuring out tricky ways to get at causality, because the world doesn't just offer you up causality. Okay, what you see in the world is correlation. What the world gives you is things are moving together or they aren't. But to be useful, you need to dive down, to be able to strip away what's causing what, what's not causing what. The data that we've looked at suggests that by the time you actually have a kid, most of the choices you make that will make you a good parent, you've already made them.
So if you go to the store and buy 10 parenting books, it's probably not going to really help the kid that much. But the fact that you're the kind of person who, as a parent, cares enough to go buy 10 parenting books, even if you don't read them, that probably means you're a pretty good parent. It's just don't think that the books are going to have a magic effect.
Ah, parents. We want to believe so much that everything we do is going to make a difference in our children's lives. What they eat, where they go to school, who they hang out with. But before any of that takes place, parents are confronted with the one single ominous decision that could shape the entirety of their children's future. What is going to be their name? These days, there's an entire industry devoted to naming your baby. And business is booming. There's magazines, books, websites. There's even high-profile baby naming experts.
I'm a baby name expert. I study names, I ask parents how they choose names for their children, and I look at how names are changing, because baby names are changing today faster than ever before.
Names are important because they have a lot to do with your family, your heritage.
The name represents you, you know what I mean? Street credibility, all of that.
Names are definitely a big part of meeting someone.
A name can make you popular and a legend.
Without a name, you're nobody. You gotta have a name. It tells your whole identity.
But just how important can names really be? I mean, unless it's Rockefeller or Gates, can your name have some sort of magical power over your entire destiny?
Ooh, the name fairy.
Not convinced? Well, what about the following story? Once upon a time, there was a young mother who thought she was naming her daughter after her favorite actress on The Cosby Show, the smart and fiery Tempest Bledsoe.
This is the most humiliating moment of my entire life, and there have been many.
But having never seen the way it was spelled, the young mother mistakenly named her newborn daughter Temptress. Well, little Miss Temptress didn't have an easy time growing up.
I don't even know if that's what you mean.
As a teenager, she became sexually promiscuous, got into a whole bunch of trouble.
Okay, you little shit! That's right, I better not catch you!
And ended up in court.
All rise!
Leaving the judge to ask her mother,
"Is young Temptress just living up to the expectations of her name?"
Was that one little misplaced T and R all that stood between a life of ease and huxtable success versus those long, hard days in court and juvie? Harvard professor Dr. Roland Fryer was determined to find out just that.
What happened to Temptress has nothing to do with her name, has everything to do with where she grew up.
It turns out Temptress grew up in a poor black neighborhood, the kind of neighborhood Dr. Fryer's been studying for years. As a world-renowned economist and a leading expert on race in America, Fryer has long been interested in what he calls cultural segregation, the gap between white culture and black culture.
One embodiment of that culture is what you name your kid. It's probably one of the few cultural items that we can really measure precisely. What we did was we looked at the effects of your kid's first name on their life outcomes.
Dr. Fryer analyzed the naming records of every baby born in the state of California over the last 40 years, and those names tell an unmistakable story. African-American parents are more likely than any other ethnic group to give their children unique names.
There is definitely a distinction between names for white people and names for black people.
Black names be like Malik, Jaquan, Nashawn, Naheem.
Tasha and Shamika.
Shaniquas and the Nashons and the Kayshons.
I know this girl, her name is Treasure, Trezure. Struck me as typically, more African-American name.
I like the names that begin with S-H-A, like Shaheem, Shahid, Shamar.
Shakeem, Shakur. Oprah is popular.
It was actually in the 50s and the early 60s that we saw huge overlaps in the naming patterns of blacks and whites. So people, naming their kids John, Michael, names like that. And what you saw was around in the 1968 or so, kind of the Black Power movement actually, you saw distinct bifurcation with black names getting more distinctively black, and a lot of them were Islamic names. Because the Black Power movement was about identity. Who are we? Who are you? Are you part of us? It wasn't until the late 80s and 90s that we started to get, kind of the made-up, concatenated names that you see now.
This generation today, they sort of changed the whole name concept. They have names that are 30 letters long, and...
Now, everybody try to do something, unique. They try to name their kid over something different,
We had 228 unique versions of the name Unique. Again, my favorite was U-N-E-Q-Q-E-E. Another one of my favorites was U-N-E-E-K. So there are a lot of people are trying to be unique.
So what happens to all these uniquely named kids? Kids like poor little Temptress.
I think it's not the name that's doing the damage to Temptress. It's that they grow up in the type of situation where someone would name their kid Temptress. The person who actually would name their kid that probably has a host of other issues that are influencing that kid's lifetime outcomes, not just the name itself.
What kinds of issues? Well, let's look at a boy with the study's most common white name and a boy with the study's most common African-American name.
The person who gives their kid a distinctively black name, on average, is more likely to live in poverty and to be kind of on the lower rungs of the socioeconomic ladder.
You see, this is where Jake lives, and this is where Deshaun lives.
In Deshaun's neighborhood, the schools are not functioning. The teachers in those schools aren't the same quality as would be in Jake's neighborhood. In those neighborhoods, 80% of the households are female-headed only. And what we found is that names don't matter so much. The type of mother you have, the type of family you have, the type of community you grow up in, those things matter a lot. But what they name you just doesn't matter.
So a name doesn't define your destiny?
maybe if you name someone Destiny, I don't know. But no, I mean your name doesn't define your destiny.
A name may not define your destiny, but it can dictate the way other people perceive you. Meet Harvard professor Dr. Sindel Malainathan.
I'm very familiar with Roland Fryer's work. We both worked on the impact of names. I think Roland has emphasized that the people who choose names that are very black are different from the people who choose names that are not very black. Whereas we've emphasized that, holding everything else constant, the people who end up with very black names are treated very differently. We know that in the data, African Americans earn a lot less. And we're interested in how much of that earning less is simply because they find it harder to get a job. And are African Americans treated very differently in the labor market than whites?
Dr. Malainathan conducted his own study, this time in Boston and Chicago.
What we did is we made up 5,000 resumes. Half of them we put an African American name, half of them we put a white name. Otherwise, the resumes were the same. And we sent them out. And then we said, which got called back more? And what we found was that the same resume, when it had an African American name, was about 33% less likely to get an interview than when it had a white name.
It means that if a white person is searching for a job for 10 weeks, an equivalently skilled African American person would be searching for 15 weeks.
And those are 5 long weeks if you're unemployed.
You can judge somebody by their name. It's not right, but people do it. They assume that just because your name is Monique or your name is Lavon or Shaniqua, that you're African American and you're not qualified because your name has an ethnicity to it.
One time there was a girl named Lakeisha. I talked on the phone and I thought she was black, but when I met her, I was totally shocked that she was a white Southern girl.
When I picture Rashonda, yeah, she's black.
The names we used in our study were names like Lakeisha, Jamal, Tyrone. Based on our results, it raises a question. I'm an African-American parent. I'm thinking of naming my child. Tyrone sounds like a very good name. I might have had a grandfather named Tyrone. Should I name my child Tyrone? Yes, naming your kid Tyrone, you have made it harder for them in the labor market. On the other hand, should you give in to that? Should I give in to the prevailing norms, or should I express my individuality as I want? It's a bit of an ethical quandary.
My friend's got a drug dealer named Tyrone that I assume is a black guy.
Todd is a white name. Tyrone is a black name. I mean, that's sort of how it goes, right?
You might choose a distinctly black name as a way to signal something about yourself and about your commitment to the black community. And that's a way to show other African Americans, look, I am really black. And I think the fact that there are distinctly black names already tells you that there is a cultural divide at some core, visible, noticeable level. And we see it sometimes in clothing, we see it in names. And in fact, it's true, there are quite a few distinctively white names like Emily, Brendan, I'm forgetting what those, if you give me a minute, I can come up with the others.
White names is like Sarah, Megan,
Maria, Mary,
Billy,
Becky's, John's,
Tad,
Joe, Mike,
Ryan, Sam,
Chester.
My brother and I were talking about how we had pretty white-sounding names. He's Abner, I'm Harper.
Stone Phillips. Look, that's like perfectly suited for a white guy. This is the best white guy name you could have.
We live in different cultures, and your name is largely determined by your culture. And the difference in the incidence of Lakeisha amongst African Americans versus whites might be a good way to understand how truly there are different cultures that African Americans inhabit and whites inhabit.
Today, there's more evidence than ever that the culture we come from influences the names we choose. Just ask the baby naming expert.
More and more today, you see parents choosing a name almost as if they're launching a product, that you're trying to position your child for the best chance of success in a global marketplace.
So in an oversaturated marketplace, which names garner the most attention? Are some names destined for the top shelf while others are headed for the bargain basement? Let's take a look at two different product lines. Turns out there is such a thing as a knockoff name. The top 5 middle-class white girl names from Fryer's study are, in order of popularity, Ashley, Lauren, Jessica, Emily, and Sarah. While the top 5 lower-income white girl names are Brittany, Samantha, Amanda, Jessica, and Ashley. So what's happened to Ashley? She's fast losing her popularity on the middle-class list, but she's #1 among the Walmart crowd. As those wealthier folks see their names popping up everywhere, they quickly discard them in favor of less common merchandise. And just like that, today's high-end Ashley becomes tomorrow's low-rent Trashly. On the lowest rung of the ladder are the names that most signify lower-class parents, like Misty, Destiny, Bobby, Brandy, or Cindy. Now, if you're over 40 and actually remember a time when these names didn't belong up here on stage, you're right. Years ago, these names wouldn't be caught dead in a place like this. But the years have not been kind to a name like Bobby, and even though she once was at the top of the socioeconomic ladder, today, she's just clinging to her former glory.
Please don't name your kid Barbie or Bambi or anything like that. They might end up being a dancer one day because of it.
And if you do end up with a name that's bound for stripperdom, at least you can change it. I mean, hey, it works in Hollywood. Think about it. Would John Wayne have been as tough if his name was Marion Morrison? Would we think Marilyn Monroe was as beautiful if her name was still Norma Jean? And would we think of Ice Cube rocking the crowd if his name was still O'Shea Jackson?
Actually, I always wanted to change my name to Max Powers, because it seems like a name that everybody, like, once they hear it, they're like, dang, this guy must be really cool.
I wanted to change my name when I was younger. I never liked it.
If my name was Henry Obama, you know what I mean? I think that would mean something to people, and I would have more doors open for me.
I did want to change it, but now I'm sort of cool with it. It just sort of like jumps on your back and rides along with you through life, you know?
As much as you may hate your name, at least your dad isn't this guy. Meet Robert Lane. He had 2 sons. He named his first son Winner. 3 years later, he named his next son Loser. So Winner and Loser Lane set off in the world to claim their destinies. And what happened? Well, Loser went to prep school on a scholarship, graduated from college, joined the NYPD, and eventually became a detective and then a sergeant. He goes by Lou now. And his brother? Well, the most noteworthy achievement of Winner Lane is the sheer length of his criminal record. Nearly 36 arrests for burglary, domestic violence, trespassing, and other mayhem. Is there one name that you can give a kid that will guarantee they won't come screw up?
No. Sorry, there is not one name that you can give a kid to guarantee they won't become a screw-up, and there is not one name that you could give a kid to guarantee that they'll actually be a success. You know, it is a crapshoot when it comes to names.
I don't think there's any name that can guarantee success, at least none that we found. You know, the world is full of excellent people and terrible people with all sorts of names, but the vast majority of the reasons people choose is left unexplained. It's like, why did you choose your child's name? Sounded nice.
Who really knows what parents are thinking when they choose a name? Maybe your parents went with something traditional, or something bohemian, something unique, or something perfectly trendy. And maybe your parents didn't have the best taste and you can't stand your name, or maybe they got it just right.
Actually, my name means intelligent hero, so that describes me to the fullest.
I was actually named after a horse. My dad's a horse trainer.
My middle name is Comfort because an angel of the Lord came down to my mother and told her she was going to have a daughter with dark hair and blue eyes who would be a great comfort to her.
The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, was the last seal of all the prophets.
My name says that I'm named after my grandfather, who was named after his great-grandfather. That's what it says.
In the end, most parents just want the best for their children. And if they believe a particular name can give their kid that extra edge, then why not? I mean, who knows? It just might work.
As W.C. Fields once said, a thing worth having is a thing worth cheating for. Or as Mark Grace of the Chicago Cubs once said, if you ain't cheating, then you ain't trying.
Everybody understands why a kid would want to cheat on the SATs, right? They have huge gains of being able to get into Stanford or Harvard and have a good life as a result of cheating on a test, okay? What's harder to think is, why would a teacher cheat for a kid on a test? And yet, when you go to Chicago and you look back a few years ago, we find that lots and lots of teachers were cheating. Well, why were they cheating? Well, because there's tremendous pressure on these teachers to produce high test scores so that their schools wouldn't get into trouble. First of all, it's very expedient to go to the end of the test, because at the end of the test, a lot of kids have left things blank. So instead of having to erase something and fill it back in, you can just fill in the answers. Now, it might look kind of funny, because how often when kids take a test do they answer the first 20 questions, leave 17 questions blank, and then fill in the last 8 questions, okay? And even maybe a little funnier when they fill in the last 8 questions and they get all the questions right, and those just happen to be the hardest questions on the exam. When I got the data from the Chicago Public Schools, I mean, we were talking about millions and millions of answers by thousands of kids over years and years. And I looked at the data, and I couldn't see anything. I mean, how could you ever see anything?
If you can think like a teacher who cheats, and then look again at the sea of data, these patterns come to light.
Patterns which are subtle, that are buried in mounds and mounds of data. When looked at just through the right lens, suddenly it's just as clear as day. And once you know what to look for, you can't help but say this has to be cheating.
What he's really good at is like pretending he's a cheater and a criminal and a thief and a cheat and all these things, because really he's not that far from. I mean, if you think about what an economist is, the line between like economist and criminal is incredibly thin.
And what about journalist?
No line. Because he can put himself in the shoes of someone who would behave criminally or who's a cheater, then you can kind of back up the process and reverse engineer it. And that's what you have to do, because unless you're in the room with cheaters, it's really hard to catch them.
It's not that some people cheat in every setting or some people never cheat. We all cheat sometimes and not others. I mean, everyone's got their own moral compass that determines what they'll do and what they won't do.
Economics tries to be a pure science in an impure world. Economists imagine men and women as rational actors in a marketplace that hides nothing from buyers and sellers. But what happens to markets when people cheat?
10 years I've been interested in cheating, and I was in Washington, D.C. I remember seeing just a little blurb in the Washington Post that said there'd been allegations of cheating in sumo wrestling. And my view has always been, if some insider comes forward and says there's cheating, probably there's something to it. If you had said, where is a sport where you would not find cheating? I would have said, well, sumo wrestling would be a reasonable one. It's got 2,000 years of history. It's all about purification rituals and honor. It's located in a culture which on all of the rankings of corruption across countries is very, very low.
The ancient sport of sumo wrestling is the essence of pure competition. Two naked men fighting in a sandpit under the watchful eyes of a referee dressed as a Shinto priest. Shinto means way of the gods, a religion that celebrates the purity and harmony of man and nature.
In sumo, you do your ceremonial stuff. One is the clapping of the hands. That's to awake the gods. Two is when we show our hands and flip our hands over and stuff, is to show that we have no concealed weapons.
You're coming out, you're gonna fight fair with your bare hands, and to tell the gods that you're coming in with a fresh and clean mind and heart to wrestle.
The stomping of the feet in the Shinto religion is to stamp out evil spirits, and throwing of the salt is to purify.
神道と相撲というのは切っても切り離せない関係だと思います。神様を喜ばせようとする、そういう儀式を行いますね。
I think purity is a good mask for corruption, perhaps most so in that it discourages inquiry. It's true that sumo might seem to be immune from corruption because of its purity and its history and so on. On the other hand, the stakes are high. And when stakes are high, and when there's an incentive to cheat, a small percentage of people always will.
Just as in medieval Japan, the wrestlers, known as rikishi or strongmen, spend years in apprenticeship, living together around the clock and training in stables or beya, subject to strict moral and physical discipline.
If you're a sumo wrestler in the top ranks, your life is very, very good, and you can live like a king. Once you fall below those ranks or never attain those ranks, your life is not very good at all. So it's a very steep pyramid. At the top, life is great, and then there's a lot of people down below for whom life is not so great, but there are so many of them because they all aspire to get to the top, obviously.
It's a battle 24/7 being a sumo wrestler. It's not just two big fat guys trying to kill each other, but it's a lot of work to be big and at the same time active. 6 major tournaments a year. You have to wrestle with the injuries. They throw you in the jungle and see how you can come out alive. The object of the game is to push your opponent outside of the ring or push him into the ring.
But how can you tell if a sumo wrestler is cheating? Is a slip on purpose? Is a fall rigged? It's hard to tell unless you look at patterns over time.
People who are being corrupt are always trying to actively cover their trail. So corruption is, by its nature, hard to identify, hard to prove. Murder is really great, because almost always when someone's murdered, there's a corpse.
You might say, as an outsider, how would you know if someone's cheating? And the answer is, well, it's in the data. I don't have to ever have seen a sumo match. I can go in the data, I can look at it, and I can tell you with almost complete certainty that there was rampant cheating going on.
In professional sumo tournaments, the wrestlers fight 1 bout per day for 15 days.
If you win 8 out of the 15 matches, you can move up in rank half a slot. The difference of half a rank can be maybe $5,000 in paycheck a month. The respect you get in the Sumo Association. So when you talk about stuff like that, that 8th win, it's real critical.
Arikshi, entering a tournament's final 15th match with a 7-7 record, has far more to gain from a victory than an opponent with a record of, say, 8-6 has to lose. If a wrestler has 8 wins under his belt, he is guaranteed to advance, even if he loses that last match. So he can afford to take a fall. In Japan, there's a term for match rigging, yaocho. Many suspected that sumo matches might be rigged, but it is nearly impossible to prove unless you look closely at the numbers.
2 wrestlers who I would expect to have an even match, when one of them needs the 8th win and the other doesn't, the one who needs it wins 75% of the time rather than 50% of the time. That is a huge deviation.
I, 8-6 wrestler, let you, 7-7 wrestler, win this deciding match because you, my friend, are going to fall down the pyramid if you don't. In return, the next time those 2 guys meet, lo and behold, the 8-6 wrestler almost always wins those matches.
1988年の9月から、相撲の取材を始めたんですけど、それから1月ぐらいでもそういうものがあるんだっていうのは分かりましたよね。僕らが肌で感じているその八百長の実態というか、まあ確かに証明しきれないものなんだけれども、それを数値的に裏付けてくれたなっていう印象は持ちましたね。本を一読して。原理的には簡単ですよね。別に前もって談合をして、勝つのか負けるのか勝負をあらかじめ決めておくと。でそこにお金が介在するわけですね。1番20万円だとか、あるいは30万円だとか、あるいはさっき言ったみたいに関取以下の幕下クラスだと2万円とか3万円とか、あるいはタバコ1カートンだとかね。ところが幕の内の優勝を争うような一番になると1000万円だとか2000万円だとか、あるいはもっとっていうケースもあるみたいですけど、それが基本的な八百長ですね。やはり自分から名乗り出て証言するという方はいません。それをすると相撲という村社会から弾き出されちゃうし、で彼ら長年相撲の社会しか知らないので、外に出ていたら生活できないんですよ。
お互いに知り合い同士で仲がいい相撲取り、お互いにいるわけで付き合いですから、地位が陥落したり関取の地位から落ちたりなんかすると相手に対して同情して、手を抜くというのが基本だと思うんですけど、でそういったことをやってるってこと自体も言えなくなってしまう。僕としては相撲っていうのはそういうことありだってことをみんな見てる側も実は知ってるのに、それをだんだんと硬直化してなかったことにしていってしまったというのが、その辺のが本音と建前といえば、若干そうなるかもしれません。
Hone is real truth, and tatemae would be the surface of things, the facade. They're unusually important in Japanese culture. That's why the Japanese have given them names. But being human, living in any society, I think we can all understand the concepts themselves. The tatemae is going to be a great spectacle of honest competition, but in the service of creating that pleasing facade, the actual players are engaging in a form of corruption. To have the hone exposed produces discomfort. If you think about the sorts of financial scandals that have racked America recently, a lot of people who were supposed to be not just incredibly wise, but incredibly honest have been exposed as neither.
Those of us who have looked to the self-interest of lending institutions to protect shareholders' equity, myself especially, are in a state of shocked disbelief.
That produces a kind of disillusionment in any society that had formerly looked to those people or those institutions as somehow representative of what's best in that society. Sumo would be an example of that in Japan.
While I would not put the Bernie Madoff pre-arrest reputation, I wouldn't necessarily call that one of purity, the way we would talk about sumo wrestling or the way we might talk about the Catholic clergy. The SEC had an image of this guy that was almost sacrosanct in that he'd run an exchange. He'd been a market maker. His reputation was so large that it discouraged them from coming in with a bias toward corruption, and instead they brought a bias against it.
Rita, what do you have to say for yourself?
What do you have to say to the public, to your investors?
The realm of high finance and the world of sumo both demonstrate that the illusion of purity can not only hide corruption, it can help to make it possible. In sumo, when whistleblowers stepped forward to expose corruption, they were not treated kindly. In 1996, two sumo veterans, including a recently retired stablemaster, collaborated on a tell-all expose that was serialized in the Shukan Post.
大鳴親方がやった時の衝撃は結構強かったと思いますね。それなりのポジションにいた人、結構実名を挙げていてましたし、手口がかなり詳細だった。それも相撲協会としてはできたらなかったことにしようと思ったんだと思うんです。
The Sumo Association dismissed the allegations as lies, told by a vengeful stablemaster, seeking to cash in on publicity. To defend their claims, the whistleblowers decided to hold a press conference. But 2 weeks before the press conference, both men died. In the same hospital, on the same day, from the same mysterious respiratory ailment.
大変不思議な出来事だと。つまり納得できない出来事だったと当時は思いました。
当時はその相撲賭博がすごく華やかで、力士の勝った負けたっていうのはオッズをものすごく左右するわけですよね。だからそこで彼が全てを暴露するっていうことは、その日本の闇社会のある種のタブーを犯すことになるんで、そこで彼は死なざるを得なくなってしまったのかなと僕は解釈してますけどね。
Yet no one questioned the way they died. There were no autopsies. The police did not investigate the sudden and simultaneous deaths. It's a very good hospital, a police spokesman told reporters. So there were no grounds for suspicion.
だからその遺族がその解剖を望まなかったってのあるんですけど、その前に司法解剖だろうっていう気はするんですけどね。相撲に対する見方そのものが、それは警察だけじゃなくて社会的にそうなんですけど、なんかちょっとこうアンタッチャブルっていうか、治外法権っていうかね、触りにくいところがありますよね。
Concerns about the sport resurfaced when another mysterious death haunted sumo. This time, it was a young rikishi in training named Takeshi Saito, whose corpse showed visible signs of assault and mutilation.
事件が発覚した後、親方は彼は稽古の上でのね、不慮の死であったと記者に対してそう答えているわけです。ところが事実はそうじゃなかった。そこで僕これはもう書くしかないなと思って書いたんですね。あれだけの傷を負いながら司法解剖されない、あれが自己死とされてしまう理不尽さ、それが日本に一体どのぐらいあるのかと考えると、やっぱりちょっとゾッとする話ですよね。一相撲界の話じゃない。そういった意味で事件が投じた波紋っていうのはものすごく大きかったし、彼の遺体の語るものは多かったですよね。
Hiromasa Saikawa took note of the death of the young wrestler. Saikawa is one of the nation's most vocal critics of how murders are investigated in Japan. He quit his post on the Tokyo police force when the gap between the hone, the hidden truth, and the tatemai, the facade of propriety, had grown too wide.
日本の警察の殺人事件の検挙率は 96% をずっと超えております。これは到底信じられない数字でして、その数字は現実とは違うということを全ての警察官は知っています。
The job of any police force is to help keep crime at low enough levels so that society can properly function. The tatemae of the police force is to be seen as doing that. If the police, for example, can tell society, we solve 96% of crimes, they have certainly fulfilled their tatemae function in comforting society, making society feel safe. But to achieve that level of tatemae, the police might select only cases for investigation that they think they have an extremely high chance of solving.
他殺体が発見された場合ですね、その人物を殺した人間が誰なのかということが分かっている場合には殺人事件として捜査を始めます。ところが誰が殺したのかは分からない、犯人がいつまでも捕まらなかった場合ですね、それは死体遺棄事件のまま終わってしまうということがあり得るんです。警察もスポーツの選手も努力の成果というものが数字で評価されます。検挙した数字だけでその警察が評価されると。いい数字さえ上げられれば実際はどうであるのかを問わないという傾向がありますね。さまざまな工作をして数字を上げようとしますね。それで私は警察を辞めたいと思いました。
Despite clear evidence of brutality, the police declared that the young man died of natural causes, and the stable master quickly asked for the boy's body so it could be cremated. But the angry father of the young man insisted on an autopsy, which revealed that he had been burned with cigarettes and beaten to death with beer bottles and baseball bats. The young boy had died at the hands of fellow wrestlers who were ordered by their stable master to punish the boy for trying to run away from the world of sumo.
相撲界にとっては非常にショッキングだし、もうこれまでのやり方は通用しないのだよということを明らかに示しているし、それから僕が書いた八百長の記事をきっかけに相撲界に対するその見方が世間非常に厳しくなっているので。
Sumo countered criticism with lawsuits against Takeda and his magazine. Juries ruled against Takeda in cases where he accused individuals of match rigging. But sumo had no defense against the revelations of violence. To defend its reputation, the Sumo Association shores up its image by building on notions of purity from Shinto that are essential to what it means to be Japanese. Publicly, they insist that Yaocho is a myth.
I hope there was none of that going on in the bottom ranks, but where I was, no.
そういうしかないでしょ。俺もそういうふうに言いたいけどね。八百長なんかないとか。俺は正直に言うしかないからね。
A retired rikishi who rose to komusubi, the fourth highest rank in sumo, Keisuke Itai came forward and publicly admitted to fixing many matches, and named names of others who did the same.
彼は非常に強い力士でしたね。張り手一発で相手をノックアウトさせちゃうような。彼の師匠の親方が彼が相撲界に入ってすぐに八百長を仕組んだんですね。で彼は知らず知らずにその世界にはまり込んでしまった。だから麻薬と一緒で八百長っていうのは一回始めちゃうとなかなか抜け出せないんですね。八百長を経済システムと仮定して言いますけど、大きなお金はそのピラミッドのトップの横綱に集まるんですね。何千万円というお金が仮に集まったとして、でそれを下にあまねく潤していく、相撲界全体に潤していくんです。そのためのツールとして八百長がある。
結局力士全体が真面目に取ればすごいなんていうか神がかりのスポーツだと思いますけどね。今でもやっぱり真剣勝負見ればやっぱり感動しますしね、八百長見ればやっぱがっかりするし、そんな感じかな。僕らはもう全部わかりますから、相撲見てて真面目に取ってるか取ってないかぐらいは。
しかし欧米では建前とは違うことをやった場合であってもですね、時間の経過とともにそれが明らかにされることがある。例えば公文書なんかも30年経てば原則公開するとか、日本の場合それが全くありません。永遠に 闇に葬ることができるという強い信念を持っているようですね。
In Japanese media, there's a certain form of self-censorship. Giving interviews in Japanese, the media will not quote me if I use the word daraku, which is corruption in Japanese, and they'll change that instead to something like konran, confusion. We certainly have the very same thing in America today. The New York Times, for example, will not use the word torture to describe anything that's been carried out by Americans in operating our prison system in the war on terror. However, if it's the Chinese who've done these things to an American airman, the New York Times has no compunction about calling those things torture.
The only way to combat corruption, says Stephen Levitt, is to change rules to undo corrupt incentives, unleash more investigative reporters, and develop strong protections for whistleblowers. But that's easier said than done when cultural slogans in America and Japan reassure us that we're honest, straightforward, and fundamentally good. Those who expose corruption are challenging the very nature of who we imagine ourselves to be.
The irony of our analysis of sumo wrestling was when it became public, the sumo wrestlers stopped cheating. And now, not for good. They actually stopped cheating for a year or two, and then once people stopped thinking about it, they went back to it. But that, I think, is the answer to how you stop cheating. That Louis Brandeis said that sunlight was the best disinfectant.
What keeps us from seeing corruption are our illusions that our economy is a rational system, a free market open to all. The fact is that rigging markets and matches is good business if the rigging is hidden from all but a few. In Shinto, the mirror is an important symbol, reflecting a sense of who we are. In that mirror, the bad heart is a hidden heart. The pure heart is one that hides nothing. Looking at the numbers and accepting what they tell us is a way of wiping dust away from the mirror.
Well, hi there, boys and girls. This is Captain Kangaroo. Say, I'd like you to meet a friend of mine. So, you know, it's lots and lots of fun to have a pet that you can run and play and jump with, isn't it? But did you know that there are some boys and girls who can't run and jump and play? It's all because of a thing called polio.
When I think of bad historical assumptions about correlation and causality, I think of polio 100 years ago, when it was this horrible mystery that it was, you know, claiming a lot of lives, and it was really scary because it mostly struck children. And there was a strong line of research that suggested that ice cream caused polio, that ice cream consumption caused polio.
Here comes Mr. Softy, the soft ice cream man. The creamiest soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy.
The reason that that correlation was thought to be causal was that polio spiked in the summertime for reasons that really weren't very well understood, but it did. And ice cream sales spiked during the summertime. So these researchers had seen that whenever there was a lot of ice cream being sold and consumed, there was a lot more polio. And so there was really literally the beginnings of this kind of ice cream persecution to try to stomp out polio. And it sounds ridiculous, but you see it all the time now, people trying to fight against or build up something that they're sure is connected to something else, and which it turns out just isn't.
We have a crime problem that is now out of control all over the country.
I am pro-choice. I believe in Roe versus Wade.
Extremists bomb more than 30 clinics across the country.
People like you allow babies.
You never give voice to the real experiences of women.
When I started studying crime in the early 1990s, it was roughly at its peak, the highest it had ever been in the United States. And all the experts expected it would go higher and higher. The warnings were everywhere. But then, much to everyone's surprise, something happened.
Oh, I don't know. I guess you're right. I suppose it'd been better if I'd never been born at all.
What'd you say?
I said I wish I'd never been born.
Homicide rates went up in half of the nation's city. 373 homicides last year, up 65.7% over 1987. Murder is a national problem, up an average 11% across the country.
In Bucharest tonight,
deposed communist leader Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife have been executed.
Pictures of the former communist dictator lying in state, executed by firing squad.
Crime and violence are now the top concerns of many Americans.
You've been given a great gift, George. A chance to see what the world would be like without you.
As the 1980s drew to a close, law enforcement experts predicted that the crime wave of the preceding decade would continue to rise. It would be the decade of the mega criminal. There was only one problem. It didn't happen.
Across America, the crime rate is down.
The FBI has some good news about crime. It's down. It's clear the numbers are dropping. What's not clear is why.
What's behind this dramatic change?
Primarily, it's the police strategies. We have incarcerated our criminals and thus taken out of the population those people who would commit crimes.
Experts and officials lined up to offer explanations for the drop in crime.
Community police officers, better prevention.
Their explanations included more innovative policing, harsher criminal sentences, changes in the crack market, increased gun control, a strong economy, and more police on the streets. But economist Stephen Levitt examined these explanations, evaluating the most popular ones.
When you look at the data carefully, it's just not clear that they really have that impact that people have suspected.
By analyzing the reasons most often cited by those in the press, Levitt was able to separate the more likely factors from the less likely ones. The crime drop explanation most often cited was that innovative policing strategies had been introduced in some cities. New York City, for example, implemented sweeping law enforcement changes, from Police Chief William Bratton's CompStat system to Mayor Rudolph Giuliani's crackdown on small street crime.
The reductions in crime that have taken place in New York City are pretty close to miraculous.
New York City had among the biggest declines in crime of any city in the country. So there's an enormous amount of fanfare given to the strategies of Giuliani and Bratton. But crime fell everywhere. It's hard to find any city in the United States where crime didn't plunge. And also, crime was down 20 to 30% before Giuliani ever took office. So a number of things make me suspicious that it really was the policing strategies.
The second reason most cited for the crime drop was an increase in the reliance on prisons.
We've locked up 1 million more Americans since the early 1990s. There are now 2 million Americans in prison, and that's got to reduce crime.
Levitt recognizes that imprisoning more people will, in the short term, bring crime rates down.
By my estimates, about 30% of the decline in crime can be attributed to the fact that we got very tough on crime in terms of locking up criminals.
This is crack cocaine.
The third explanation for the crime drop, most often cited in the press, were changes in the crack market.
Now, experts say crack cocaine may finally be on the decline.
The peak of the crack epidemic came in the late 80s and the early 90s. And at that time, an enormous amount of the homicide in particular could be attributed to crack. But for various reasons, the amount of violence that's been associated with the crack trade really faded.
That's not the move no more.
So that can explain about 15% of the decline in crime.
Other possible reasons for the crime drop examined by Levitt include tougher gun laws, the 1990s economic boom, and an increase in police nationwide. Though Levitt does not entirely discount these, he sees them account for only a small fraction of the overall crime drop.
There are a million factors that drive crime, but how do you determine the particular composition?
Overall, what Levitt found from all these reasons was that taken together, they only explained about half of the 1990s crime drop. The other half remained a mystery. So what happened? Well, let's rewind to what for many Americans may have seemed an irrelevant incident in a faraway place. When Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceausescu was executed by his own people on Christmas Day, 1989, it marked the end of a brutal totalitarian reign that had lasted 24 years. In his earliest days, Ceausescu's Romania faced a struggling economy, and he sought to vastly increase their workforce. To achieve this, Ceausescu outlawed abortion in 1966. Agents known as the menstrual police rounded up women to give pregnancy tests and taxed the infertile. Across Romania, women were forced to have children, and they could no longer choose when it was right to do so. Romania's birth rate doubled, But more and more births across the country were, not surprisingly, unwanted and resulted in troubled upbringing. Of the infants forcibly born that first year, more did worse in school, suffered poor job performance, and were thus more likely to become criminals than those born the previous year, even controlling for the age, income, health, and education of the mother. But what do events in Romania a long time ago have to do with crime in America in the 1990s? According to Stephen Levitt, a lot.
You've been given a great gift, George. A chance to see what the world would be like without you.
What I believe to be true, and I think the evidence supports it, is a hypothesis which many people find jarring and disturbing, but nonetheless I believe is probably right.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions.
In 1973, in a case called Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court ruled that abortion, which had previously been legal in only 5 U.S. states, would now be legal nationwide. Precisely the opposite of what happened in Romania.
The legalization of abortion in the 1970s was one of the primary reasons why crime fell in the 1990s, because a whole generation of potentially unwanted children were never born because of the legalization of abortion. And if you fast forward 20 years to the point in time when they were going to be at their peak crime ages, they simply weren't there to do the crime.
You see, George, you really had a wonderful life. Don't you see what a mistake it would be to throw it away?
The trouble, of course, is that life isn't like the movies. For so many children who, without Roe v. Wade, would have been born in 1973, their lives might not have been the wonderful lives of being born into a loving family in yesterday's small-town America. Rather, theirs would be the far harder road of being born into a potentially unwanting household in America's crumbling inner cities or forsaken heartland. Levitt's conclusion? As much as half of the 1990s crime drop was an unintended consequence of Roe v. Wade.
The theory behind it is actually quite simple. Unwanted children have been shown to be at high risk for crime. With legalized abortion, fewer unwanted children were born. Therefore, the theory would be that there would be less crime 15 to 20 years later when those cohorts reach their peak crime ages. And the data support that hypothesis quite strongly. If you follow the data, there were 5 states that legalized abortion 3 years before Roe versus Wade, and about 15 years later, their crime begins to fall 3 years before the rest of the country. Then, if you look at the states where abortion was not just legal, but easily available to people who wanted to get them, 16, 17 years after Roe versus Wade, you see a 30% difference between the states doing a lot of abortions and the ones who are doing very few. Finally, all of the effect we see in the divergence in crime, all of that is concentrated among people under the age of 25, people young enough to have been exposed to legalized abortion. People older than age 25, there's no difference whatsoever between the high abortion states and the low abortion states. And I think in some ways that's the best evidence we have that legalized abortion is responsible for a big chunk of the decline in crime.
Levitt's controversial theory has provoked strong reaction among critics. Is he, for example, advocating abortion as a crime-fighting tool?
In no way would I take this as advocacy in favor of legalized abortion. I don't think anyone's opinion about whether abortion should be legal or not should be affected by our result.
Some of Levitt's critics suggest that his theory holds what might appear to be class or racial implications. He argues, though, that race and class have nothing to do with the matter, that his theory targets no specific group other than mothers-to-be of all backgrounds. And since, as Levitt points out, women who elect to abort go on to become childbearers consistent with the general population, Levitt's argument could thus be understood to suggest that legalized abortion does not so much prevent birth as delay it. This turns an unwanted birth by a too young mother, for example, into a wanted birth by that mother when she feels more ready. So, if Levitt is not advocating abortion as a crime-fighting tool, what is he advocating? Well, whether one is pro-life or pro-choice or somewhere in between, there is a meaningful and to date unimpeached connection between giving women the right to choose and a reduction in crime.
Kids! Hey! Kids, Jamie! Jamie, Tommy! Let me look at you.
Oh, I could eat you. Where's your mother?
She went looking for you. With Uncle Billy. Daddy!
Suzu, my little ginger snap, how do you feel?
Fine. Not a smidge of temperature.
Not a smidge of
Well, we started off in a normal interview pose, and now you're lying down, swinging a pillow around. What's going on here? If I give you a slice of juicy fruit, will you say whatever I want?
No.
No! Wait, I heard that you would do anything for a slice of juicy fruit.
No matter how smart you are, and economists think they're pretty smart, you come up with some incentive scheme that you think is the perfect one to entice exactly the behavior you have in mind. And you set an army of people with nothing to do all day but to figure out how to beat that incentive scheme, and they absolutely will beat it.
Tell them about Amanda.
It's such a long story. You can't possibly. I mean, I'll give you an example. So we were trying to potty train my daughter, Amanda, and my wife went into books and did all the things you're supposed to do, but Amanda had been potty trained, and then she just decided she just wouldn't use the toilet anymore. And this went on for months. My wife was frustrated. And I said, I'm an economist. I understand incentives. Let me take over. And I got right down on Amanda's level on my knees, and I knew what she liked more than anything else. She was about 3 years old. Were M&Ms. And I said, if you go pee-pee in the potty, I'll give you a bag of M&Ms. She said, right now? And I said, yeah. I said, okay. And she walked over to the potty. She went to the bathroom. I turned to my wife, and I said, let the economist handle this, you know. And indeed, for the next couple of days, it worked to perfection. Every time she had to go to the bathroom, she announced it. She went to the bathroom. There was a lot of fanfare. We gave her the M&Ms. Everything was going great. But 3 days later, she said, well, I have to go to the bathroom. Followed her. She went, trickled out a few drops. I gave her the M&Ms. She got off. She said, I have to go again. She sat down in the potty. She trickled a few more drops. I gave her the M's. Gotta go again. Basically, in 3 days, she had gone from someone who could do absolutely no bladder control to being so, so professional at it that she could control the flow completely at a whim, and had a 3-year-old had basically come up with a way to beat the incentive scheme I had developed within 3 days that I never in a million years could have imagined. Okay, and if you can't, if an economist can't trick a 3-year-old for more than 3 days, what hope does economists have of tricking a whole country of people for even 3 hours?
So that's kind of the beauty of incentives. You don't really know what works, and governments think they know what works, and they spend a huge amount of resources establishing incentives. And they're going to do all these things that seem to make a lot of sense and that sound really great and may work out well in some measure, but they're going to backfire in so many different ways that we can't predict yet. And people will laugh and people will cry, and that's what incentives are.
That was nothing. Make another one. I know I could do good in school, but I don't. I have a reputation of a bad child. Parents are way too uptight in kids' business. Like, where are you gonna go? What are you doing? When are you coming home? I mean, they'll be like, hey, you have homework, and then I'll say no. Or I forgot my book at school, I'll do it in the morning. Something.
That works?
Get some off my dick. What's up? Hopefully I make it through high school. If I fail, I guess I try to get a GED through the military or something. I have no clue.
In the modern economy, not graduating from high school is like an economic death sentence. But when you're talking about high school kids, What matters to them is what's happening today, not what's going to happen a month from now or 6 months from now. You have to have a very forward-looking mindset. I think most kids don't. In designing incentives to help kids get through school, we have to have that conundrum in mind.
The idea was for the University of Chicago to see if students could increase their test scores simply by giving them a financial incentive. If it works with one student, then it's good enough for me because we have no stake in it financially. The University of Chicago is picking up the tab. Why wouldn't we at least try it? I'm thinking it's going to work. Opportunity, you'll always miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And that's my message to the students. I don't need to put my degrees up on the wall. I already have those. I want them to get those.
How's it been starting in a new school?
It's actually not that bad. I like it here.
Yeah?
It's really easy.
You like the kids and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, the classes are really easy?
Yeah.
Let's see, pull out your report card, and we've got your how you're doing right now. You can see your grades.
Yeah, not that good.
All right, so what do you need to improve on?
Everything.
Okay, but you know what? I've seen grades go up a lot, so you probably want to know what you can get, right? If you do meet the monthly achievement standards.
Sure.
Okay, so open up your folder.
$50.
Yeah, and you get the $50 every month as long as you keep your grades up.
Right. I think a lot of people here are gonna start doing their homework then.
Yeah, but what about you?
$50
Why
could
you?
buy a lot.
It could
I don't
buy...
know. It could pay for my skateboards, so then I could get sponsored, get free clothes and stuff until I graduate.
How was school today, okay?
Amazing.
Good. Kevin came home from school and he says, Mom, if I do really good, I can get paid for it. Mom, I could really make money. I'm like, all right, fine, Kevin, go for it. I said, and I'll tell you what, you keep your grades up, you're gonna get the money, and I'll tell you what did I tell you? Mom will double it. Whatever they give you, Mom will match it.
All right.
Then you'll have double the money if the grades go up.
All right.
A little bit of bribery, what parent doesn't do that? We all bribe our kids one way or another.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Bribery works with my kids.
5,
They love to be bribed.
8, 9, 10.
For 50 cents, I can buy whatever I want in my household.
Oh, and I forgot this dollar.
The closest thing to a worldview, I would say, in Freakonomics is that incentives matter. Not just financial incentives, but social incentives and moral incentives. Our goal was to figure out, can we cheaply and quickly move the needle at a school? Can we get kids to achieve more as quickly as possible with spending very little money?
There are 900 freshmen in our experiment. At the end of every month, we hold a payout event where all the kids who have gotten all C's and above receive $50 in cash. In addition, those who qualify are also eligible for a lottery where they can win $500.
Cross the fingers.
To win the money, they have to have no more than one unexcused absence, no all-day suspensions, and all your grades at the end of the month have to be a C or higher. It's great to give them this financial reward, but it's also about having a lot of fanfare around it, giving them this big Ed McMahon check, sending them home in a Hummer limo. I think there's definitely a limo effect.
Awesome. Oh, that is so cool. Are you serious? They get the writing net? Oh, that is so awesome. Oh my God. This is awesome. Oh, yes. Yes. You are getting straight A's from me. Yes. There's a lot of things that I would do for money. I mean, I work all year round. Hi, I'm a representative for your Royal Kings Royal Snow Shoveling Service. We charge $3 for a walkway and $5 for a driveway. Would you like to hire our services for today? Hook, line, and sinker. They say money doesn't buy happiness, and I agree, but I disagree. It depends on how you look at it. Because when they say money can't buy happiness, they're saying material things cannot make a person happy. Wanna bet?
Okay, BPL 083. Unfortunately, that person did not meet the standards this month, so we cannot give them the money.
You know what you need to do next month, right, to make it? So you're pumped you're going to be meeting the standards next month?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I took a look in that limousine. I'm like...
Oh, you saw the limousine outside?
It was awesome. The lights, the way it was tricked out. Oh. Take us home, Jenkins. Oh, it'd be so cool. These are my halls. These are my halls. Call me the king, because that's my last name. The King! 5 and 7 are prime. So that's out the
Write
door.
it. Show your work.
5. You can't break down 5 because it's a prime number.
Show your work. I don't need you to do.
No, give me 7 through 12. So
No, I said 1 through 6.
Oh.
You don't get to pick. It's really important for him to finish school because I didn't. He's very intelligent. He needs to focus. They got to find something to get these kids into going to school and getting their grades up.
Hi, my name's Eli. I'm calling on behalf of the Chicago Heights Miracle Project at Bloom High School. Is Guadalupe available?
Is Hector available? Is Marvell available?
This is a message for Jessica Richardson. We wanted to congratulate her on meeting the monthly achievement standards this month, so she's eligible to win $500.
I'm calling for...
And also just let you know to have her keep an eye on her math and biology grades because they're at a C right now.
Is Sean available?
Hi, this is Sally Sadoff from the University of Chicago. Is Kevin Muncie there?
This is him.
Hi, Kevin. I'm looking at your grades, and it looks like you need to bring some of them up. Are you doing something to work on bringing up your grades?
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't done every assignment so far.
Mm-hmm. So are you going to your teachers and asking if you can make up the missing assignments?
Yeah, they're actually making a list for me right now.
Oh, that's great. So you're going to try to make those up.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you turn in missing assignments, it can bring up your grade a lot because you go from having no credit for the assignment to getting, some credit or maybe even a lot of credit, and that can make your grade bounce up a lot.
Yeah.
So are you going to be getting the $50 this month?
If I do my best, yeah.
Are you going to be doing your best?
Yeah.
All right, that's what I like to hear. All right, take care. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Huh. What? Go duct tape them.
I have a little drawing over here. Chromosome number 21, Down syndrome occurs. So, if you have normal splitting, this is what happens. We're making sperm here. You have 1 sperm, 2 sperm, 3 sperm, 4 sperm, right? 1 copy in each. Where's the other copy at? It's in the egg, right? They come together, make a pair. Take a look down here.
Mr. Gashorn, can Tyler come help me?
Sure.
You just want to copy Lindsay's? No, just tell her to come back here. Lindsay, do you have that?
Congratulations, you met the standards.
Congratulations, did you get the $50 this month?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it didn't meet the standards this month.
Right.
So it's just on the grades category, and you just need to bring up these grades to be passing.
So let's take a look here. Algebra, you're passing, that's good. So what's going on in biology and world history? Are you missing assignments?
His history teacher said he should be in his honors class, but the simple fact that he's not doing the work is why he's not there. He had to do work. The struggles between me and my mom is mostly about homework, because the way it is with her, she always would say, when I was in school, we had homework every day. And I'm trying to get her to understand that this is the 21st century. That was then, and this is now. Teachers are a lot more lenient, and teachers, no offense, but teachers are starting to care less.
Okay, so what do we have?
I think the results look great this month, where you see, control is at 28, and then all the treatments are at 36 to 38. So that seems great to me, you know?
You go from 28 to 37,
Right.
I mean, you're talking about close to a 30% increase, right?
So it seems like what we're doing is we're taking all the D kids and getting them to C, and we're not doing anything with the E kids.
Right. The question is, does a kid who moves from a D to C this year, are they gonna have a better life?
Right.
And I don't think we know the answer to that, but we'll find out over time. We'll find out.
But I have definitely been surprised by how well the parent groups are doing, that parents still make a difference in 9th grade, it looks like.
I took a quiz on this book, the To Kill a Mockingbird book. I took a quiz on that. Did you read the book? I read the book. Did you? I read the book. I read the book, but I couldn't comprehend it because it's... Did you read the book? Yes, because we had to search and read to find the answers. We had to read the book and find the answers. And what... Stop. Did you read the book, or did you just skim over the book to find the answers to the questions that you were looking for? Because there's a difference. We read it as a class, but then when we do the test, he gives us the page numbers to read and look for the answers. Did you read the book without the class? Did you actually sit down, physically read the book from cover to cover? Not from cover to cover, but as much as I read. You didn't read the book. We didn't. You didn't read the book. If you didn't read the book from cover to cover, outside of class, with no help, no instructions from your teacher, along with your classmates, you didn't read the book. That's why you failed the test.
This week, instead of using profanity, replace profane words with appropriate ones. Thank you and have a great day.
That's not right, Andy.
Look, I made a tattoo gun out of a toothbrush, and I was giving myself a tattoo in class.
You have a tattoo?
I'm giving it to myself. I only did like a little bit. I gotta do it a lot better. I can't let them see it because I know they get in trouble, but I made it out of a toothbrush, and then you just turn it on. I made it out of guitar string. I don't think I would take any money for giving up my social life. I want to be the class clown, but I'm doing better, and I want, say, a 6% in an actual grade to almost a D. That's a big change in a couple weeks. That's really dramatic.
He always had to be the class clown, always had to get the laugh in. Impressing everybody around him, that could be his incentive. But you would think that to impress everybody around you, your grades would be with that too. He had gotten something in the mail that showed a list of all his grades, E, and I said, oh, he's enjoying 9th grade, he wants to do it again, so. Now what I need to do is, whenever he asks me for money now, he's not gonna get it. End of story. Yeah, and when the skateboards run out of wheels, are getting bad, well then just keep grinding them down or go hit the books or something.
What does it mean to say that a genotype is homozygous?
When all the alleles are the same.
When all of the alleles are the same.
Alleles.
Give an example of that.
Like AA.
All right, a horizontal line.
This is my last chance to win this $500. I'm at the line. I'm splitting a hair. My grades has been going up and down. There was always something that would distract me. You know, the main thing that was distracting me was trying to be cool, you know, trying to keep up with the Joneses, basically.
King.
King. Okay. Congratulations. It looks like you met the standard for this last month. Yes. Yes. So here's your report card. Yes. And the bracelet.
Here's the front, and here's the back. Congratulations, man.
Great grades.
If I fail, that's it. I'm done. I'm dropping out. It's the Army, Marines, Coast Guard. You go to Iraq or something like that. I have no clue.
Big round of applause for the
Yes.
Take us home.
What did the final results look like?
Our program is getting 35 to 50 more students to pass ninth grade. 5 to 7% boost in ninth grade passing rates. We should have expected a lot higher rates than that. I think we hoped for a lot higher rates than that.
If we gave them $50,000, if they passed the ninth grade, what share do you think would pass? Would we move 10% of the kids, 20% of the kids? All of them?
I don't know.
I think we need to attack the problem at a much younger age. The dollars will be better spent during the earlier years.
So what are we gonna do next year? What about the preschool? Did they find us a school yet?
Yeah, we've got a few preschools lined up, and they seem excited.
So if we're talking about preschoolers, are we talking about taking parenting out of the hands of the parents, or teaching the parents how to parent, or both?
Experiment with both.
That could be fun.
The way I see it, learning is like a virus. You know, it's a virus that most adolescents at this age don't want to catch until later on in life. Next year when I'm a sophomore, I'm gonna tell you I am doing great and I'm getting A's and B's. Next year when I'm a sophomore. And yep, and if not A's and B's, straight B's or B's and C's. Hey, that stuff's difficult. That's not as easy as it looks. I can promise you milk and cookies, but if the oven is broke, you just get milk.
Our incentives, unlike everyone else's, are to be honest. Because we built our whole reputation on if we're honest about this issue and we're honest about this other issue, then people will believe us we're honest about everything. So the worst thing we could do, the only way we can ruin our reputation, is by starting to take sides in fights. In some sense, we're this peculiar beast which actually has the right incentives to just seek the truth and not have an agenda.
So I don't think anything we've ever written or thought is going to save any lives, really, or, you know, make people smarter or better in any way. But we kind of give people permission to challenge conventional wisdom sometimes and to ask a different kind of question entirely. And a lot of times the questions are the sort of questions that you asked as children, and you know, people kind of chuckle at you, but once in a while they turn out to be really good. The problem is that as you get older and like you ask them as adults, like if you're in a meeting or with your friends or whatever, then they laugh at you hard and you just kind of stop asking those questions entirely. And we just kind of keep doing it. We kind of say, what if this thing that everybody thinks is so really isn't so? Or what if that didn't cause this, and what if this caused it? And I think that there just needs to be a lot more permission for people to think like that. Total BS, wasn't it?